Hello and welcome back to Planet 40k. Today we're going to check out the Repulsor Executioner from the Space Marine Codex. So this is one of your heavy support options within the book. It also doubles up as a transport vehicle, sort of like a Land Raider but for your Primaris Marines. This tank is the bigger brother of the standard Repulsor, which I'll do a quick comparison later in the video. So this one's 19 power level or 355 points for the model, so it's quite an investment for your list. It goes into any Marine chapter that you play, and it's also got the Repulsor field keyword along with Marine Spirit, and of course is a vehicle. As for its stat line then, it's got movement 10 inch, weapon skill 6+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 8, toughness 8, wound 16, attack 6, leadership 9 and a 3+ save. When the tank is damaged, it does get bracketed, losing movement, ballistic skill and attacks. So as standard, Marine units have the Angels of Death ability, which is an umbrella of 4 abilities merged into one. So the 4 rules included are now shown known as Fear, which is the ability to not take any modifiers to combat attrition tests, which isn't really going to be a factor for your tank. Bolter Discipline, which affects how you use your rapid fire weapons. Now you've only got one of your weapons that have the rapid fire rule, so this could be shot double the amount of times if fired at half range. Shock Assault, which is where if you did charge with your tank or you were charged or heroically intervened, then you'll gain an additional attack. It's not really a melee model, so I wouldn't go charging in with it unless it's vital. Then finally Combat Doctrines, which is a buff to armor penetration of all your weapons. So each battle round gives a buff to certain weapons. So battle round 1, it applies a -1 AP modifier to heavy weapons and grenades. Battle round 2, it goes on rapid fire and assault weapons. Battle round 3, you have the option of keeping it the same as round 2 or changing it to pistols and melee weapons. And then 4 and 5, it will stay on pistols and melee weapons. So really you're looking at battle rounds 1 and 2 and possibly 3 as well for it to interact with your tank's weapons. Next it's got the Aquilon Optics, which is each time your model makes an attack with its heavy laser destroyer or macro plasma incinerator, you +1 to your attack's hit roll. So with those weapons in particular, you're going to be hitting on 2s. They've got the Explode ability, which triggers on a 6+ when the tank is destroyed, and any unit within 6 inches will suffer D6 mortal wounds, so it's a pretty big explosion, that one. And finally it's got the Hover Tank ability, which is more of a tidy up of rules, so you measure distances from the Repulsor's hull rather than the base. Now it's also a transport as mentioned in the keyword, so it's got the capability of carrying 6 Primaris Marines that are within the same chapter as the Repulsor. Now if any of those models do have the MKX Gravis armor, then they'll count as 2 spaces from the 6. The tank cannot carry jump pack units as well. So that's the abilities. Looking at the weapons next. The stock weapons are 2 Fragstorm grenade launchers, a heavy onslaught Gatling cannon, a macro plasma incinerator, 2 storm bolters, a twin heavy bolter, a twin Icarus Iron Hail heavy stubber, and auto launchers. So tons of weapons to get through here, guys. Starting off with the 2 Fragstorm grenade launchers. So these are 18 inch range, assault D6, strength 4, no AP and 1 damage with the blast keyword. So it's pretty much a frag grenade with better range, D6 hits and blast as well, so a good little extra to peel off a wound or 2. Nothing special, although you do have 2 of these, don't forget. Next is the heavy onslaught Gatling cannon, which is a 30 inch range heavy 12, strength 6, -1 AP and single damage. So very effective for your anti-infantry, great range as well at 30 inch. 12 shots at strength 6 is really good. Get rid of those infantry models off the board. Then a -1 AP for good measure too. If used on the first turn, it'll actually be a -2 AP as your combat doctrine will be in effect. 12 shots at ballistic skill 3 will net you about 8 hits on average, and you're likely to be wounding any infantry on 3s, causing 5.3 wounds on average there. Now of course the -1 AP still leaves a lot of units in the game with a reasonable armor save, so it won't clear off an entire unit by any means, but it's only one single weapon within a boatload of weapons from the tank itself. Next is a macro plasma incinerator, which comes in 2 profiles. So you select which profile you're going to use before making any attacks. So both profiles are 36 inch range heavy D6 with the blast keyword. However, the standard variant is strength 8 -4 AP and 2 damage, and the supercharged variant is strength 9 -4 AP and 3 damage. And of course, if you're supercharging and you're rolling 1s to hit, then you're going to be suffering a mortal wound. Now bear in mind that this vehicle is able to fire this weapon at a +1 to hit, so it's quite effective as you're hitting on 2s. Now if you did supercharge here, then 1s will still give you that mortal wound, as it's any unmodified hit rolls of a 1, so they don't just become 2s. I think I'd only go for the supercharge on anything toughness 8, a strength 8 with the standard variant is good enough, especially when you have up to 6 shots and hitting on 2s. I mean the -4 leaves virtually no save too, so a really powerful weapon, that one. Next it's got 2 storm bolters, which are range 24 inch, rapid fire 2, strength 4, no AP and 1 damage. So within 12 inch you'll be firing 8 shots with this because you've got 2 of them. So it's just more DACA here really, guys. Nothing special about this, but it does add up. To add to that DACA, you've got a twin heavy bolter, which is a range 36 inch weapon, heavy 6, strength 5, -1 AP and 2 damage. So 6 more shots hurting infantry yet again, but this time at -1 AP, 2 damage a pop, so you could even be aiming this at more elite units if needed. With ballistic skill 3 you're going to be hitting on average 4 out of 6 of these shots, and at strength 5 is either wounded infantry on 3s or 4s at worst. It then has a twin Icarus Iron Hail Heavy Stubber, which is a range 36 inch, heavy 8, strength 4, -1 AP and 1 damage. And each time an attack is made with this weapon against an aircraft unit, you can +1 to your attack's hit roll. So you guessed it, more infantry Dakar, this time 8 shots, and although it is good against aircrafts, it's only strength 4 with single damage, so it's not going to be taken out of plane out the sky, as it so easily suggests. I'd rather be firing this at infantry on the battlefield. Then finally it has auto launchers, which isn't actually a weapon, it just gives the tank a smokescreen keyword. So that's all the stock weapons, so take a deep breath now, before we start getting into the upgrade options. Thankfully there's only just 3 here. The first upgrade is switching out your Macro Plasma Incinerator for a Heavy Laser Destroyer. Now it will cost you 10 points for the upgrade, but you will still be able to use a +1 to hit just like the incinerator. So this is a range 72 inch, heavy 2, strength 12, -4 AP, and the damage is D3 +3. So crazy stats all around for this weapon, and when you're hitting on 2s you barely miss, and if you do miss just chuck in a command reroll to give you a much better chance of scoring those 2 hits. That -4 AP again leaves not much of a save if anything, and the damage average is 5. So this is definitely something to be firing on other vehicles and monsters alike. So don't waste this on infantry or even elite units such as Terminators or even bikes. The damage is too high for those models. The second option isn't actually an upgrade, you simply just have the option of adding an additional Iron Hail Heavy Stubber for 5 points, which is a 36 inch range, heavy 4, strength 4, -1 AP and 1 damage. So it's just more strength 4 Dakar here from solid range. The last option here is to add 1 Icarus Rocket Pod for 5 points, which is only 24 inch range, but it's heavy D3, strength 7, -1 AP and 2 damage. And each time you make an attack against an aircraft unit, you're +1 to the attack's hit roll. So more anti-aircraft Dakar, this time with more reliable strength 7, so now be wounding those flies on 3s or 4s rather than 5s. D3 shots however isn't the best. I'd still take it as strength 7 for just 5 points and 2 damage a pop isn't that bad, especially with the blast keyword 2. I'd be more inclined to just fire this at troops on foot and get the blast keyword off. So that's the 3 extra weapons that you can get with the Repulsor Executioner. It's now that time where we look into the codex itself. Starting with Stratagems, Armour of Contempt for 1 CP gives the vehicle a 5+ feel no pain roll against mortal wounds for a phase. Very situational, but I'm sure you'll run into those games where your opponent is spamming mortal wounds. Power of the Machine Spirit for 2 CP gives units with the Machine Spirit keyword full wounds for the purposes of the vehicle damage table, so you'll be firing at ballistic skill 3 and moving a full 10 inch even if you've only got 1 wound remaining. Next we've got Grav Pulse for 1 CP, so you can select one of the following. You can either fall back and shoot with your Repulsor, although you must pop the stratagem in the movement phase, or you can -2 from your opponent's charge roll if your Repulsor is the target of a charge. So the fall back and shoot one is really powerful, although you can shoot in combat due to it being a vehicle. However, it is much nicer to be able to choose your own targets. The -2 to charge option is only useful if the charge is already a tough charge and your opponent is chancing it. So maybe a deep striking unit going for that 9 inch charge, pushing them back to 11 inch is quite effective. But when your opponent's got command rerolls and their own hosts of buffs and stratagems to aid their charge, it wouldn't be worth doing it if say they only had a 7 inch charge. Smoke Screen for 1 CP is the last stratagem available for you done in your opponent's shooting phase, which gives them a -1 to hit your tank. Pretty solid, as the weapons that are gone in for your tank will most likely be a low shot count but high strength, so I'm definitely looking to be use this, especially against armies with only a few big guns in their list. Looking at other ways to buff your tank, from the psychic abilities, there's only one really of note, which is the Psychic Fortress, giving your tank a 5+ invuln save, something it actually lacks, even though toughness 8 is really good, but mass firepower or a few big guns getting through will soon take those 16 wounds away from you. So onto some select chapters that can benefit from having a Repulsor Executioner. So the Dark Angels with their Grim Resolve, so if the tank remains stationary then you're going to get a +1 to hit. They've also got Relentless Hunt, which grants all heavy and rapid fire weapons a 6 inch range boost, while in the Devastator Doctrine, which is turn 1, and the assault weapons will gain 3 inch as well. Now Dark Angels are about to get their own supplement release, which may see changes to their detachment abilities, so just be aware of that. Imperial Fists remove the benefits of light cover with their Siege Master chapter tactic. They also give an additional hit when you roll a 6 to hit with a bolt weapon, so this only applies to the Storm Bolter and the Twin Heavy Bolter. And their doctrine is Legacy of Dawn, so in the Devastator Doctrine again, if you fire heavy strength 7 weapons or higher at a vehicle or building, add 1 to the damage. Now this will only work with your main gun and the Icarus Rocket Pod if you bought one of those. Crimson Fists get no matter the odds, so a +1 to hit at firing units that have got 5 or more models in your tank. Now vehicles do count as 5, but your model will also count as 5, so firing tank to tank isn't 5 more, so it won't apply. So this one's really useful on units of 6 or more infantry, and your guns are made for anti-infantry anyway. And in addition, they also get the same as the Imperial Fist, where their bolt weapons will get an additional hit if they roll a 6. Their doctrine is the same as Imperial Fist actually, which is Legacy of Dawn, which you've previously mentioned. The Iron Hands chapter tactic, the flesh is weak, gives you an army-wide 6-up feel and a pain roll, and also any unit that has a damage table, such as the Repulsor Executioner, are always considered to be having double the wounds for the purposes of the table. So just to bracket your tank to the next tier down, you need to take it right down to 4 wounds. Then for the purposes of the table, it will be classed as 8 wounds and therefore only just be bracketed. Their doctrine is called Calculated Fury, allows you to reroll 1s to hit for your heavy weapons whilst in turn 1, i.e. the Devastator doctrine. It would also allow for units to move and fire heavy weapons as normal, but you're a vehicle, so you don't really need that. Ultramarines have the fallback and shoot at a -1 to hit with their Codex discipline, and Salamanders can reroll a single wound roll per phase, and also turns -1 AP weapons into 0 AP weapons if your tank was the target of an attack. So as you can see, the tank does fit into a lot of different chapters and can benefit from a lot of unique chapter abilities. So let's take a look at how it compares with the regular Repulsor. So the regular Repulsor is only 315 points at a base cost compared to the 355 for the Executioner version, so there's only 40 points in it. They virtually have the same stat line, although the regular tank can transport 10 Primaris infantry compared to the 6 for the Executioner. Now in all honesty, I don't think you'll see much use with the transport capabilities, as you've got the Impulsor that's so cheap and so effective to do that, especially when you can get units out, allowing them to move as normal in the same turn as your tank moved. So these Repulsors are really bought for their weapons, so they do have a feel of a Land Raider from the old editions where you paid a heavy tax for having both the weapon options and the transport, but both weren't always needed. Now going back to the standard Repulsor, it's sort of the same bunch of weapon loadouts. Instead of having the Macroplasma Incinerator or a Laser Destroyer, it has a one-use only Strength 10 Hunter Slayer missile, or it can chuck away its Twin Heavy Bolter and pick up a Twin Las Cannon, which is Strength 9. But they obviously don't have the +1 to hit like the Executioner does. So you're really only paying 40 points to have the option of going to Strength 12 and hitting on 2s with only a few of those weapons. Other than that, it's got a similar roll. Now the slight issue I have with all the weapons from the Executioner is that you're taking it for that 72-inch Strength 12 weapon, which would imply that you want to stay back and fire at range, which isn't the worst idea as it has no invuln save, and it also doesn't want to be caught up in close combat. But a lot of its weaponry is only 24-inch, so if you're at the back of your deployment zone, then you're not making the most out of all of your weapon loadouts, which you've paid 355 points for the privilege of using. Also, with it being a transport, it would suggest that you're going to be going up the field with guys in it, so it sends me mixed messages as to what it should be doing. Now, you could argue that it does everything in terms of range attacks, but you're paying for everything, and in a single game of 40k, you won't be physically doing everything. So you need to ask yourself, am I getting my 355 points worth out of this unit? I don't think you will be. It also hasn't got an invuln save, so it will get targeted quite early on and it will go down. I mean, if you target it with a unit of 10 Hellblasters, a single round of shooting on average with those Hellblasters will do about 13.3 wounds on it, virtually nullifying the tank, and then another unit will just mop it up. Looking at it from another angle, for 355 points you could purchase an Impulsor and a Gladiator Valiant for roughly the same sort of points cost, which has a lot more wounds. The Gladiator is still a toughness 8 and still has some solid high strength weaponry. As for the Impulsor, not only is it amazing with its assault vehicle rule, but it carries a good amount of anti-infantry DACA along with its 5+ invuln save if needed as well. So as for the rating, it's a tricky one. I don't believe you do get your points worth out of it all the time, but I'm going to be giving the Repulsor Executioner a Planet 40k rating of 3 out of 5. They still carry a boatload of DACA and it will do you reasonably well. So that's what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you field it? How many of them do you field? Or do you prefer the other options such as the Gladiators or the Stalkers, the Impulsors? Just let me know in the comments below. If you are new around here, don't forget to subscribe. And on your way out, please give us a like if you've enjoyed the video. Thank you all for watching and I'll see you in the next one.